one of the greatest Roman philosophers is Cicero, who stands up in the Senate
In a dress.
in a toga. In a toga, let's be clear.
That's the problem. It's the wardrobe. It's the wardrobe issue.
Welcome to Classical Etc. You're in the studio with Memoria Press.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Classical Etc. I'm Jessica Aboud, and you've got the core four today: Martin, Tanya, and Paul. Well, everybody,
It's August.
it's August. We're feeling it. Yeah.
Woo.
What projects are on your plate right now?
Oh, if I say it out loud, people will be emailing to get it. I'm working on Herculean Labors.
Okay.
I'm working on another new little something.
And you've got all the teachers to train.
And the teacher training starts Monday for
Exactly.
new teachers. So some of this stuff needs to be done, printed. Ian's waiting on me to print some things for the school. I've got NLE prep tests to do because we're going to start those earlier. We're going to start prepping
Like before January?
earlier. Yes.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Okay.
So
Got a
lots
lot.
of stuff.
Paul, you've got a lot with the new podcast.
Yes.
You're always reading.
Always
You'll be glad when those
recording.
boys
I
go
feel
back
like
to
I have
school.
not been in the studio with you all for a long time because I've just been
With the guys.
with the Baxter, Luke, and Max. But as well, trying to keep everything else going at the same time. But now I'm reading Silas Marner currently for margin notes.
Ooh, anything else for fun? Just
No,
that?
nothing for fun currently. But I did get this in the mail
Ooh.
from Thrift Books, and I have no idea who it was from. So I need somebody to step up and tell me who it was from.
Ooh, okay.
Growth of the Soil by Knut Hamsun.
I want to say the K might be
Knut.
silent, but
Knut.
No, I think
no,
it's
I think
not
this
a-
is
Oh,
Knut,
is it
'cause this is
really?
Norwegian.
oh, new translation.
Yeah, it's a Norwegian, but this was published in 1917. It won the Nobel Prize.
Oh, wow.
The epic novel
1917, so it's probably
of
good.
Man and Nature that won its author a Nobel Prize.
Yeah. So
Oh,
this is
wow.
I want to get to this. I need those boys to go back to college
That's
and
right.
for me to stop reading everything they're telling me to read, and then I will get to this.
I think you're going
A
to love
book
that.
about
Yes.
farming in the Swiss Alps.
No, not the
No,
Swiss Alps.
Undoubtedly a
Scandinavia.
bestseller in
the
its
the
time.
Scandinavia.
it's the not the Pioneer. Come on, it's like the what do you call it? Out on the frontier of Norway.
Which
the,
is
wait, the frontier.
Norway is
That
one
doesn't
big
make any sense
frontier,
at all.
right? It's very
Norway's
rural
been there
and,
for a
and
long
expansive.
time.
Okay, fine. In the story of Isaac, who leaves his village to clear a homestead and raise a family amid the untilled tracts of the Norwegian backcountry.
Well, when is
That's-
it set?
When is it set? Yeah, what's setting?
It could be 1400.
1917, I think. Thanks, Jess.
It's set.
I mean, it was written in 1917.
No,
I think that's.
but where is it set?
I don't know.
Wait,
Because Martin is
new to
questioning the
this.
frontier of Norway.
I'm sorry. Do you think every acre in the world has been?
Norway
Farmed and
is
tilled
not.
No, but
and-
you use that about like a whole region or something. It's like Norway's been there for a long, long time.
Yes,
It-
but a lot of it is frigid and not a place where
That's
people
right.
want to live.
Well,
It's
and for
pretty
good
mountainous,
reason.
and think about all the fjords. The landscape is pretty choppy
But they
because
know
you've
they're
got
there.
the fjords.
They have maps of them. They have.
I bet it's still the frontier if it's totally unsettled.
Well, I don't
where
know that it says
you-
something is a frontier just because it's unsettled. It's just unsettled land.
Wow. Okay. Well, this I have not read it. I believe the word frontier was my word, and so
Not to
I
put
will
that on
come back
Knut.
and tell you.
Yes, now we're really curious.
Once I
All
get
right.
through that, but
it
we'll-
looks unsettled to me on the cover.
Mhm.
it does, doesn't it?
Yes.
I mean, can you
It
imagine
looks
just
like a frontier.
living in front of that?
Paul looking at the camera. Oh, we got a book from someone too. And it's from Tiffany. Tiffany wrote us and said she really loved Ruta Zapetti's Between Shades of Gray. And I'm excited to read this because I probably in the last 3 months have read 2 other of Ruta's books, and I really enjoyed them. They're very good on audiobook. If you don't have time to sit down and read, I find that these are really good for my daily commute. So whether it's the physical book or audio, I will be reading this, Tiffany. And I bet I'll get through it pretty fast. And Tanya, I think you
I'm
would like
going
it.
to take the book. Yes,
Yeah.
I'm going to take the book, and you're going to do the audio book.
I will. Yeah.
Okay. Yes. This looks great to me.
What I like, she does
but I've
historical.
never read anything by her.
I think you'll like it. She does historical fiction, but what's different I find about her stuff is that she chooses a pretty obscure spot in the history of a common or a well-known time to just draw out a whole world of characters. And it's just fascinating. And she's a great writer. So I think you'll like it. I haven't read it, but
it sounds good. So it's set in World War II, it looks like. The Soviet secret police.
On the frontiers of Siberia.
No, Lithuania. Oh, yes, Siberia too. Yeah.
Does it say frontier?
It sounds very cold, like a book you should read in the winter.
perfect.
Well, just like his.
So I also
Frontier book.
have a book, but I had to buy it.
Oh.
So, I said I was kind of slogging through Abolition of Man and struggling with it. So somebody, not in the podcast email, and I never would have found this because I don't know how to look at the comments that on our stuff.
Yeah.
But there was a comment that somebody said, and I don't know who it was. Marketing just sent me the little blurb that said that this book called After Humanity by Michael Ward is a guide to C.S. Lewis's The Abolition of Man.
Is this a new book?
I don't think so.
I believe it was written on the frontier, Martin.
Undoubtedly, yeah.
It was written in 2021. And
I didn't know about
that this should help me. And so I am going to read this alongside my Abolition of Man,
Now,
that's exciting to me to help me.
I'm normally suspicious
of Michael
books,
Ward?
No, of books that comment on other books
And
are larger than the books they're
know.
commenting on.
That's right.
But it
Are
is
you
by
serious?
Oh,
Yeah,
absolutely.
but I mean, Abolition of
Do you-
Man is small.
Yeah,
And
but
this is
are you
huge.
just going to throw out all the commentaries?
Like Bible
of the
commentaries are
Middle
like
Ages?
a
this
lot of them.
He's suspicious of them.
I said I'm suspicious. Now, this is by Michael Ward, so it takes my suspicion away. But, it's...
Anyway, I'm
Oh
planning
my
for it to help me.
gosh.
But it is,
I said normal.
it is
I mean
many more
normally,
words
not
than
all the time.
Lewis, right?
Right.
But it also has a photo gallery in the middle.
Oh.
Fun.
Always
Nice.
helpful.
So thank you, Tiffany. Thank you, whoever
Yeah, that's
recommended this to
I
me.
will probably read
and
that
thank
even
you to
more.
whoever.
Well, if somebody could please step up so I can thank
So
them.
we can- yes.
on this.
We really appreciate this because we are constantly after books.
Exactly. Martin?
Well, nobody's giving me all these books. And
No, this came to all of us. This came to all of us.
oh, that came to all of us. Okay.
Yes.
All right. So I have access to it too. All right, that's good.
Absolutely, you do.
Well, I just finished reading Aristotle's Politics, 200 pages, for our Foundations podcast at Memoria College. You can find it.
I bet you there's probably a good
memoriacollege.org.
commentary on that book.
Yeah, probably is, but it shouldn't be longer than that. And so I finished that, and then I pulled out last night. I had just been thinking about this, and I don't know why I had kind of forgotten it. But Frederick Copleston wrote a series of books on the history of philosophy, and so I mean, it really investigates the frontiers of the history of philosophy.
You know that's in our curriculum, right?
Well, sort of, but where is it in our curriculum?
In Paul's
In the course I
philosophy
wrote?
course.
Well, I knew you had written one, but I've never seen it. I've never. Where is there?
Okay, so it's got.
Hold on, Tanya.
Copleston-
I'm gonna get Martin a copy, and I will autograph it, and I
Oh,
will
that's
give him
nice.
a copy of.
Is your
That's
course more
nice.
than 200 pages? Because
No, but he reads a lot. He reads the Shorter Summa and
Boethius?
Boethius, Consolation of Philosophy.
Oh, this is
and
in your- okay.
Copleston, the
Okay,
whole
so it's a
first
part
volume.
of another program.
Aristotle, Plato.
Yeah,
Cicero.
Copleston's like the backbone for the
Okay,
first
Okay.
semester.
Yeah. So I pulled out the first volume, and I realized that I had read the whole thing. But I don't remember. It's all marked.
Well, you don't
So
remember,
I'm just going to
right?
go through and read my marks on Frederick Copleston, and then
They may
maybe-
have changed over the years. You might just read Copleston again and then see if you still agree with your marks.
no, I'm going to read my marks, and then I'm going to do try to start the second one.
all right.
Okay. Oh,
Well-
I see. You're just going to basically, it's kind of like if you're watching a series on TV and the first season is over and the second season is months later and you can't remember what happened in the first season, but you need to know because it's like a continuation. That's
Well,
what
Martin,
you're
did you
doing.
know that memoriacollege.org in the press section sells the entire set of Copleston's History of Philosophy?
He doesn't need it. He owns it.
Marked.
Well,
Not
only
marked,
the
no.
first volume's marked.
For
Well,
him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, but it's like, I'm getting this book out. I've read it before. It's all marked. It's underlined. I've got notes in it and everything. So I just was telling we were talking about this somewhere the other day where, you mark your books and really the markings are less for going back and looking at your markings later than it is just doing when you are in fact reading it and you are interacting with the book and you're making distinctions.
You're actively reading.
You're actively reading.
Mhm.
So that's the major benefit of marking your books.
It is.
But at the same time, now I'm going to go through
That's
that and
right.
I'm just going to read the underlined parts.
I've done that too.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Just to remind myself.
Yeah.
I'm reading this murder mystery by, this is my murder mystery season. By
Your
a man-
life is a murder mystery season.
Thank you.
It's
I was just about to say
I
the
don't
same
read
thing.
them all the time because I read good things.
I think if we
But
went
this
back and
one-
listened to the beginning of every Classical Etc. episode of the past 12 months,
I was
think
reading a murder mystery. I don't.
My only
think
hesitation
so.
with reading this book is I'm thinking you're reading it, so it must be a murder mystery.
No,
And,
but I don't think so.
So what is it?
Well, it's by this man named Peter Granger. That's not his real name. His real name's Robert Partridge. I heard him on a podcast, and the interesting thing about him, it is very good. The interesting thing about him is he self-published and started writing this series of books, and now he's written 23. And he was self-published and he sold 1 million copies. And then publishers started fighting over him. And I just thought, how in the world do you self-publish and sell 1 million copies? How does
Right,
anybody
yeah.
find your books? I thought it was amazing. So I decided I should try the first one.
And
I like it. I like it a lot. Now I know there are 22 more. So for the next
We'll be
12
hearing about
months of
this.
Classical, Etc., maybe Peter Granger for me.
just like the last 4 years you're always talking about. Well,
I do love them, but they have to be good.
Martin, you can keep your Westerns. She can have her murder mysteries.
all right.
We're all happy.
And I did finish James Lee Burke's last Robichaux.
Oh.
Goodness gracious.
All right. On to the rest of today's show. It's the mailbag where we answer your questions that you sent to us at podcast@memoriapress.com. And we've got a lot. Hopefully we will get through most of them. This first one is from Sarah. She says, I was curious how Memoria Press and Memoria Academy approaches teaching the Protestant Reformation with different church denominations in the same classroom, specifically Catholic views versus Reformed views. Are the famous men of the time period like Martin Luther or John Calvin portrayed as heroes or villains? It's difficult to teach this topic with mixed worldviews. So, Sarah, that's an excellent question and one we get quite a bit.
Yes,
What
we
would
do
you
get
say?
it quite a bit. Well, I would like to tell the story of how we ended up with our course on the Reformation. For years, people have been saying, "Why you don't teach the Reformation? You teach everything up to it, and then you skip over it." Which it was a problem because everything written about the Reformation has a Protestant or a Catholic agenda. And so we wanted something because we are ecumenical. And so when she says, are we teaching Martin Luther or Calvin as heroes or villains or neither? Hopefully we're teaching a neither, that we are just teaching this is who these people are, this is what they believed, and not interpreting it ourselves. That's our goal.
Our goal is to present the facts. This is
that's
what
right.
happened.
That's right. So Paul came along, Catholic, and so I thought, oh, here's my chance. So because Protestants love the Reformation, and so I couldn't really get a Protestant to find a book that would work for everybody, but I could use a Catholic who could help me find a book that was not anti-Catholic is what I needed. And so I don't know how many we went through. You read
bunch.
so many. And he finally settled on the Dorothy Mills Reformation,
Which because
Renaissance and
that one.
Reformation.
So like when we were looking at them, some of them were in print, some of them were out of print. Some of the ones that were out of print were like, this is too far, this is too much for us even to try to fix it. The ones in print, obviously, we have no control over whether we want to, tone some stuff back or, just present the facts and take out that opinion that's in there or whatever. But Dorothy Mills was out of print, but it was close enough that we could tweak a few things.
Right. So Paul he managed to edit the few things that needed to be edited so that it hopefully does not have an agenda. And so that is what we're trying to do. I mean, long way to get there, but it has been something that we have thought about and taken seriously. And anytime we write anything, any lit guide that would have any kind of religious tone or anything for classical or Christian studies, if it's written by a Protestant, we have a Catholic read it, and vice versa, so that we can make sure that we are not offending anybody or not coming down on one side or the other, because we feel like that is the responsibility and the privilege of the parent and their church to teach doctrine.
And
to
there's a lot
children.
of space between heroism and villainy, that you can fill.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah. I mean, if you treat these issues with respect and charity, and you talk about what happened, and you can even say what the case was for each side, what each side was arguing, and you don't. That's what history is usually telling what happened, and I don't see why it's any different here. There's a lot of things in history you don't, have some opinion you insert into the historical account. So.
And we do control it. We do control the conversations in our classrooms, especially in the lower school. And by 11th, when you were teaching philosophy, you could have those conversations.
Kids fighting one another for, and it's
respectfully.
Yes. But it's a moderation work on the part of the teacher to say that's too far, or whatever. But there's 2 points I want to make is that in any course, you can't present every single fact because we would be there for the same amount of time that the Reformation happened, right? So there are some things that somebody from a certain denomination would say, well, wait, I want that fact's important and you didn't put it in there, right? And so there are going to be failings on that part where somebody might know something that for whatever reason is in the book. But also, Mark, you mentioned coming at it with charity and I said something else. But I also think humility is very important, right? To come at it from our side and go, look, whatever side that I may happen to be on, we probably we assuredly failed in certain respects in this time period, right? We're failing in our current time period, right?
That's right.
And so to come at it saying, okay,
mistakes were made.
How do we come at this humbly and with respect towards the other whatever else is going on there, the whoever I consider to be the other, and say, how do I give them the benefit of the doubt while still giving my children a perspective of that this is our tradition of this is kind of like we're on the Reform side, we're on the Catholic side or whatever, but it's important for us to look at the other and recognize that they are trying to act in good faith.
And also, when you're presenting both sides, because this was a debate, right? You always, I don't hear people say this enough. You judge a position on the best arguments for it, not on the worst arguments you can find. So when you're saying is this position right or is this position right, they need to be the best case for both positions, and hopefully, where we cover that, we do that.
Was that concise enough for you?
Well, and I would say she mentioned Memoria Academy, and the same thing stands for Memoria Academy. I think it would come up in some of our European history classes, places that.
Yeah.
So the same applies there. All right, moving on. This is a question from Anna. And we got a very similar question from Emerlyn. So I'm going to kind of bring both of their questions together. Anna says, I'm writing from abroad. I've been preparing to give my daughter a classical education. However, English is not our first language. We are teaching Memoria Press to our daughter, but obviously it's difficult to make full use of the Memoria Press program with her. What advice do you have for families in our situation? What is the best way to use Memoria Press resources with non-native English-speaking students as they progress? And then Emerlyn's is pretty similar. They're abroad as well. And she wanted to know how we can preserve the essence of Memoria Press while incorporating their own local history, literature, and cultural heritage. And I know those aren't the same question, but it's two families overseas who aren't in our American context, but they are trying to make both things part of what their child gets.
Right, our resources.
Yeah, so what would you say?
So Anna's child is 5, And so I'm sure she's learning phonics in whatever language is her first language. And I don't know enough about phonics to know if even learning English through our phonics program would work or not. I don't know the answer to that. Do you?
I think it would also depend on whether they're raising them. I mean, Anna's English seems very, very good unless she used some service to translate it. But if Anna's trying to raise her children in a bilingual or trilingual or polyglot sort of scenario, using our phonics program would be helpful because.
But I would think
if they're
you
going to
would
speak
want
English, then it will be
But
helpful.
I just think, are you doing two at the same time, though? That's tough. That feels like a lot to me.
We work with schools that do this. The oratory schools in Texas, they teach in both Spanish and English.
They
right?
do. Their students are already fluent in Spanish mainly.
That's their native language.
Yeah. So it also depends on what that other second language is, right? Because Spanish, French, Italian, like if this is a modern Romance language, those pronunciation rules are going to be very easy. And so it's going to be a lot easier for them to master that phonics. And so like the hard work is the English phonics because of our irregularities and our messed up language. Even like German, things like that, like the phonics goes faster. It's the post phonics that they need to master the grammar and that sort of thing. And so,
Latin at that point is going to be helpful because that's not our native language, but we spend a lot of time on Latin because of, the value that we feel about it. But also, there are, because she wants her daughter to be fluent in English, I'm assuming, just reading some of our novels and the little read aloud books. Together will help as well. And then as she gets older, you could easily do, the classical history books and study whatever you want to. But then the other person it's more about how to incorporate their own local history, literature, and cultural heritage, which they need to do. And so at that point, you would just, I think, have to balance it and do, if you want to do some English literature, but also make sure you've left time to do some of your own local literature.
Well, and in this case, right, I think she says going back and forth between Australia and Southeast Asia, right? So like we are reading a good amount of American literature, but we're also reading a good amount of British literature, which is not ours, right?
We're reading more British,
right? And so for keep the British stuff, right? If you've got some Australian, swap out some of the American, put in some of the Australian. When we're doing American history or stories of great Americans for little Americans, like you can swap that in with some children's book for your local, heritage. Like
instead of states and capitals, to do
your local geography,
and then the world geography. That's important for everybody.
Yeah, yeah.
But we do get that question a lot.
We do get that question.
And I always appreciate it.
Yep, and that's important. It's important because, we don't want children being separated from their local heritage.
No, that is really important. I mean, that's a huge part of what we're doing, right? Is making sure that our students are connected to their heritage. And so if you're in Asia, it's just as important then that you would make that connection as well.
But at the same time, we are limiting how much time we're spending on our local heritage and focusing on our European heritage, right? And, of what came thousands of years ago. And so there's, it's not like you're throwing out the entire program. You're cutting back to, okay, what is that lineage for me? And what's, the past few hundred years do I need to focus on?
Perfect. This next question is from Elizabeth. She says, I have a lot of homeschooling families in my social circle, and one criticism I've heard many times is that classical education is too effeminate. Especially, they will say things along the lines of, boys should spend more time doing martial arts or other manly activities than learning Latin and fine arts. I've also seen this criticism online from other homeschoolers. And then she says, we have our own responses, but I'm curious what you have to say.
I've never had anybody question me about that. before about
About your masculinity?
Well, about classical education being effeminate. When I think when I taught the Middle Ages, I was so glad to have boys in there because they loved all the violence and all of the like the Iliad and the Odyssey. They loved the
pictures of
sword
masculinity.
It felt like a classical education was so masculine. I had to bring the girls along to an appreciation that the boys just naturally had. I wonder if the people even know what classical education is.
In this case, you're talking about the history and the humanities, right?
Right. Well, she says Latin
but she mentions
and
Latin
arts.
and fine arts, right?
Well,
I'm trying to gauge the criticism on its best merits.
Latin is the language of a very masculine civilizations. Right. I don't know why Latin would be. You got rules and you've got grammar.
Right.
And martial arts is not. I would consider that like ballet, like.
It's technical and skill based,
right?
Not that football isn't technical,
and
but
I would consider Latin to be an academic subject. So,
right. I mean, this really seems to be almost set up in a practical versus speculative,
or their picture of what a philosopher does. Maybe
I think it's
in a
deeper
tweed
than that.
jacket
I think
and a
it's
chair.
sort of this idea that people have. You got sports and all this stuff over there, and that's masculine. You got academics over here, and that's more feminine,
right?
Because girls tend to do better in school,
right,
and all that sort of thing. I sensed a little bit of that,
but that's what I'm saying. I would almost put practical in the sports, the vocational training, all that. That's the practical. The speculative is it's just worthwhile to know these things, right? And
whether you're a boy or a girl,
right? And so, but it almost it's like they're making that division and then lumping the boys and all the practical stuff and the girls and all the speculative stuff. And going and I think that's a dumb
classical education, probably than any other form of education, is probably populated by more male writers than you go back.
That's true,
and those are the only people who were doing academics.
That's because women weren't allowed to.
Yeah, right. And so then the classical tradition
blazed right over that. Wow, we're never going to get our due.
But in the classical tradition, I would think the criticism would be the opposite. It's too male-oriented.
It is so male-oriented,
Yeah.
yes. But now, have y'all heard this criticism before?
I have not, but I would also say that like a huge thing that I drive towards when I'm talking to people is a both and as opposed to an either or, right? Of, look, yeah, your boy and your girl ought to be learning Latin. They ought to be learning the fine arts. It's good for your girl is probably more than likely going to be happy sitting down and trying to draw a picture. Your boy might not be, but it's good for him to practice something he's not good at. Also, your boy and your girl, if trust me, my foster girls go out with me to go castrate the cows just as much as my nephews do, right? Like, I'm going to take them both out there and we're going to work, right? Because everybody needs to practice what they're not good at, right? And in the end, they may go, I don't want to have anything to do with that anymore, right?
But they've at least had the opportunity to make that choice.
Yeah. And so it blows my mind that somebody would say, well, like, you would do one or the other. Do both.
I wonder if this could be coming out of a curriculum that is less academic. And so it would be more like, back in the day, I don't know if people are still doing this, but like that lap book type of curriculum where it's more in the home and less academic and comparing that to kind of like back on the prairie when the girls stayed home and did all of the housework and the boys were out in the fields, whereas a classical education is everybody working really hard in an academically rigorous environment, which we would want for boys and girls. But I don't know how that academic environment can be criticized as being effeminate.
Yeah, but in any case, if you have a program like ours, where you're studying Achilles and Odysseus and Aeneas and the wars going on in the Middle Ages, both intellectual and military, that's hard to criticize that for not being masculine enough.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
And the intellectual wars that turned military
right,
wars, right?
yes.
Like,
Right. I was so happy to get to Anne of Green Gables because I was like, finally, something for the girls. Finally.
Yeah.
But the boys' enthusiasm for that history and for those epics brought the girls along.
Mm-hmm.
You need both.
And what we don't know, if we could ask the person who says this, is it the content that's effeminate or their picture of the person who's studying it?
That's what I'm
Because
wondering.
that's two different things.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know the answer.
I don't either, but it's an interesting question.
It is.
Because
Yeah.
it's unique to me.
Mm-hmm.
Like, is the archetype of a philosopher inherently feminine? Probably
I
not.
don't know. I'm also thinking of Horatius at the bridge.
Right. Okay.
All men.
There's no women in there.
Well, and like one of the greatest Roman philosophers is Cicero, who stands up in the Senate
In a dress.
in a toga. Let's be clear.
That's the problem. It's the wardrobe. It's the wardrobe issue.
But to accuse Catiline of treason and conspiracy, right? Like that is a very strong and courageous action. So, I mean, in the ancient world, there's not a divorce between the philosopher and the masculine. I mean, Socrates was in the military, right? Like this is maybe we need to say that kind of stuff more, but
It's interesting.
Yeah.
It's an interesting question. All right, moving on. This is from Taylor. She says, I have 2 sons. One of them is turning 5 this summer. I reached out to a curriculum representative about whether to start him in junior kindergarten or kindergarten. I'm assuming she means the Memoria Press CSRs.
I hope not, because they advise waiting until he turns 6.
Right,
I
that's
don't
what she
think we would
says.
have done that.
She says, is there a genuine benefit to delaying formal reading instruction until age 6, especially if the child is demonstrating reading readiness? Should I be doing phonics and letter recognition to prepare him, or is it better to begin teaching him how to read now before kindergarten starts?
I hope our CSRs didn't tell her to wait until he was 6.
If he's ready,
If he's
at 5.
ready, and if we do junior K when they're 4 to prepare them to be reading ready when they're 5. Now, some students are not reading ready at 5, and then at that point, it is fine to wait,
especially if
because
they're
it
a
is-
younger 5.
Yes, it is developmental. It is a developmental thing to be ready to read. But if your student knows their alphabet and knows the beginning of, can pick out beginning sounds, they're probably ready to read.
Yeah, I have this mixed view of reading readiness, quote unquote. My oldest son was 4 years old, and we sat down with the program Cheryl recommended at that time because we didn't have a phonics program. Sister Monica gives sound advice, and and we would sit down and we'd do a letter, and we'd do whatever we needed to do then, and then he'd do some backflips on the ground and go running around, and we'd come back and we do practice it a little more. Now, if you could look at that and say, well, clearly he's not reading ready yet. Well, that didn't prevent me from presenting the things slowly,
Right.
over time,
Yeah.
and by the time he was 5, he was reading pretty well.
But you don't have to enter kindergarten reading.
No,
No.
our
And I think a
kindergarten
lot of people
program-
think that. They
Oh,
think
no.
my kid has to be reading by the time they go to kindergarten.
No,
You do
our
not
kindergarten
have to.
program teaches
Yeah.
reading. We start with one letter, and we actually teach that letter.
But they should know their ABCs.
They
should
should
know
know
the
their
letters.
ABCs.
And that's the stuff that you can be working on at 4 years old to be ready to start at 5.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, if you're not doing any kind of educational attempts, and then you're like, oh, he's 5 years old, let's start him. Right. Like that's not going to go well. Right. But you should be reading to them, pointing out letters. et cetera.
Sure, but she also says she should be doing more than phonological awareness and letter recognition activities. The other thing that comes to mind that she could be doing with him is on our website. I think that is it under our kindergarten? Is your child ready for kindergarten? There are some like fine motor skill recommendations because especially for boys, their fine motor skills aren't necessarily mature enough when they do hit kindergarten, like, playing with Legos or playing in sand or, there's a whole list of. So I would recommend also that she take a look at that. And and see, like I think it's a kindergarten readiness assessment on our website. If she can't find it, she can call our CSRs, know where it is. But I would like to know if it was one of our people that told her to wait until the child was 6, because we would not recommend that unless somebody said, my child doesn't even know their letters and cannot recognize beginning sounds.
Okay. Well, maybe we'll try to tackle one or two more. This one is from another Elizabeth. And she says, as I continue to learn more about classical education and the wonderful vision of Memoria Press, I have questions. Your high school literature guides are built around the concept of one central idea. Is it actually possible to determine the single idea of a complex work?
No.
Go listen to margin notes.
Okay.
I mean, because we're using Adler's 4 questions for actively reading a book, which the first one is, what is the book about? And, and that's the first question. The second one is, what does it say in whole and in part, right? Like, and so, how does it say that in whole and in part? And so I sit down with 3 of our graduates, and every text we read, we ask that question, and generally speaking, we come up with 4 different answers, right? And we go through each one of those. And so it's just, I think that's a picture of the fact that it's very hard to come down to a central one idea.
But the exercise of trying to find it reveals a lot.
It does. Sure. It does. And there's the occasional work, like we just recorded The Short Happy Life of Francis McComber by Ernest Hemingway. And like, it's very clear. That's about courage and what it means to become a man. And like, that's kind of where we all settled. Whereas generally speaking, we're coming up with 4 different ideas.
Right. And you're, the search for a theme in a book has always been a part of literary analysis, right? And that's kind of what that is in reference to. Is what is the theme? And there may be a major theme, and there may be a couple minor themes. But again, searching for the main one is going to reveal all of those.
Well, that's helpful. Thank you. Her next question is, does Paradise Lost have a place in classical education? Can it be read instead of Dante or after the Divine Comedy?
It does have a place. I wouldn't read it instead of Dante. I feel like Dante is more, I know Dante's hard too, but I do think it's more accessible for students than Paradise Lost. I think Paradise Lost is I read it in college, and I think it's a great choice for college. We can't read everything, but certainly if you wanted to do Paradise Lost and have time to do it, it absolutely has its place. And Shane loved it. I wish he was here to talk about it. He reads it all the time.
Really?
He absolutely loves it. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. And her final question is, your study guides are an amazing resource. Can you explain how their structure varies from subject to subject and from age group to age group? That's a really big question, but I think she boils it down to say, what's the practical aspect of using them? What would you say? Why is it worth the effort?
It's worth the effort because of her first question. So these study guides help us to form the conversation around the book. That it helps with ideas about what the book is about, what are the themes, and it's just a guided way for the parent, the teacher, to be able to help students dissect a book, talk about a book, without having to come up with it all yourself and actually study it. You can use them as practically as you'd like, but really they should be conversation starters.
Yeah. And generally speaking, there's more in those guides to do than really has to be done.
Yes.
But also the way you're going to use this in the lower grades is you're going to try to more intentionally fill those out as much as possible. And then as they get the upper grades, they actually become non-consumable because we want that forming the conversation, but when the student like actively taking notes on the side. And so it's helping the student graduate from, let me answer this one question that's right there, and I'm going to answer that question to, okay, these are things that I need to make sure that as I'm reading, I'm thinking about, and I'm pulling that stuff out and I'm jotting down notes, but I'm not like dependent on that. So when they're graduating high school, they shouldn't be dependent on a study guide to be able to read a book and discuss it.
And they are. You do have to be careful because they do graduate to there. So the early guides are very black and white, very much black and white questions that you can find a specific answer to. By 6th grade, they are becoming, the black and white is still there, but there's also some abstract thought thrown in.
Mm-hmm.
So hopefully we are gradually getting students ready. So when they do get to the upper school, they're ready to think about, what do you think the central one idea
reflectively.
is? Right.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. How about we end on Jenna's question? She says, I homeschool my 4 kids, ages 4 to 14, and read aloud is one of my favorite parts of the day. I'd like to kick it up a notch by incorporating more discussion questions and literary analysis without losing that comfy read aloud feel. It recently occurred to me that at some point, the kids should probably each have a copy of their own books that I read to them. And she says, before I run out and buy 4 copies of every book, how would I realistically expect my kids to use them? I was never taught to mark my books. In fact, I always got the distinct impression that I was not to write in my books, and I felt that too. Trying to develop the habit as an adult is awkward. Is this a skill I should teach my kids or let them figure it out on their own? Should each kid in the family have their own copy of a book? And if so, how should each kid use their book? That's a good
I think
question.
You should be very careful about mixing these 2 very different procedures, okay, of reading aloud to your children. I think this is just, they need to be just taking it in, beholding it, wondering at it. But to start asking analytic questions about it can sometimes interfere with that. I think that's just a different, I'm not saying both aren't good. I'm just saying they're not the same thing. And I think in most cases, you should probably not do them together.
Okay.
I mean, in my family, we read aloud. Now, maybe later on, they took that same book and they did a study guide on that or whatever, but that's later on. And it's not at the dinner table when I'm reading the story to all my children. So
in the early afternoon when you're trying to rest a little bit and you're just having them around the couch and you're just reading to them. Like that is
different.
That is a different
than
thing.
the books that you study in the curriculum.
I think
so
that's
we're
right,
reading 3 to 4 literature books a year that is part of our literature class. But reading aloud should be just sheer enjoyment.
Yeah, I think that's right.
And that's, because people will say that they're worried about using our guides because they don't want to kill the love of reading. And we're like, no, you're doing 2 different things here, right? Like you are going to read to them and just enjoy it. And just, you might ask a couple of questions of like, wow, that's a really interesting situation this person's in. Like, what do you think you should do? Right? Maybe like you're asking that when you're concluding your reading for that day and you kind of talk about it for a minute or 2 and then on you go. Versus we're picking apart everything in that book so that we're learning how to read deeply.
And how to
again,
contemplate.
It's not saying you shouldn't do that at some point with some books, but it's just you bring the analytic questions in and the magic goes away.
And we don't start marking books until 3rd grade. And at that point, we're only marking vocabulary that's in the study guide, and we're marking characters the first time they appear, and that's all. And then every year we add some things. We have that little bookmark that has how to mark a book, and we just continue to add the bookmarking as they get older. But that is only on those 3. The book that the teacher has chosen to read aloud to the students 10 minutes before lunch or at the end of the day is totally just everybody listen.
I think that's helpful. And I hope that gives Jenna some freedom. I certainly wouldn't try to speak for her, but I can imagine got 4 kids, 4 to 14, finally make them have a quiet moment, but you want to squeeze everything out of the day with them that you can because you've got a lot to do and you think, I want to make the most of this if I'm making them sit down. And I can understand the pressure of trying to figure out how can I make the most of this. But it sounds like what you're saying is it will be fruitful and purposeful to keep the read aloud for what it is, and then the literary analysis for what it is at the appropriate time in the appropriate way. But you're not forfeiting development or enrichment or love of reading or even time by carving out space to do family read aloud time.
That's
and
right.
I can guarantee you she's putting work into it because she has a big range of kids and ages. So that's
right.
So and she loves it. So just hopefully, Jenna, you feel a freedom to keep loving it and not feeling the pressure to make it.
Well, yeah, and the age
Something
range,
different.
the age range issue is just, you
Yeah.
know, we had 4 kids, and there was an age range, and you know, you said it's a little bit of an art to be able to select a book that is right sort of in the middle of that, so that the younger kids can understand it, but even the older kids can appreciate it.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Her other question is marking like as an adult, and some people never mark their books. They feel very strongly that their books need to stay pristine, and other people just mark them up. Some people draw pictures in them, and so I think that is really just a personal decision as an adult, and whichever makes, you know, if it makes you just gives you the heebie-jeebies to mark in a book, then keep it pristine.
Well, and some of us do some with some books and none with other books.
Yeah,
So
well,
like,
I'm not marking up a murder mystery. That's right.
I think that's an important distinction, right?
That's right. But the abolition of man marks all over it because it's difficult for me. So I'm working at it. 4 copies of every book. Not necessary. Some people have 1 and they use it for all their children. The good thing, though, about everybody having a book, and I just heard Carrie McGraw, she's got 4 kids, and they all have their books from school, their novels that she's kept, and when they leave home, she gives them their library. And that is an amazing, wonderful thing. And I hate that I didn't do that. I would just get rid of them. I was a purger. I didn't want them junking up my house. And now I do not have much of a library to give to my children. But that is...
Our library is in a home for everybody, and they can come there to see it.
So there's 1 of everything, 1 Charlotte's Web, 1 Farmer Boy.
Yeah, because, and again, when you're reading to us, they don't have a book. They don't need a book in front of them. They need to listen.
But we're talking about like Farmer Boy and Charlotte's Web that they have
school book,
they have
the ones
read and studied.
Okay. Yeah, well, that
and Cheryl forced us to buy them for each student because she said that you are building their library. You are building.
And Tanya just ignored that and threw them away.
I bought them and then I got rid of them.
Well, we did. You know, when Mrs. Zimpfer in the 4th grade read to us A Little House on the Prairie and Charlotte's Web and all those books, we went out and our mother took us to the library or bought those books. We had the Little House books to have ourselves, but that was sort of after we had listened to them in class.
But very nice.
That's a good question.
Jenna's even thinking about this.
Well, thanks for your question, Jenna, and for everyone else who wrote us. We try to get to as many questions as we can, so keep writing, podcast@memoriapress.com. If we didn't cover yours today, we hope to get to it very soon. And thank you guys for bringing your wisdom and your experience, as always. Thank you. And thank you for joining us. We'll be back next time. Thanks for joining us today on Classical Etc. by Memoria Press. If you like what you heard, please like, subscribe, or share this episode or comment. We love to hear your questions and your comments. If you want to learn more about Memoria Press, please go to memoriapress.com. This has been Classical Etc. We're so glad you joined us, and we'll see you next time.